Okay. Good evening. Okay. So what was the last thing you have written? Niti Aayog. Started Niti Aayog. 5-year plan. Niti Aayog, right? See, now Planning Commission was replaced by Niti Aayog. Okay, so first question is, what do you think would have been the reasons for a replacement? So earlier, if you see, so here few things which you should observe. So Planning Commission was basically set up during the centralized planning, okay, where we were motivated from the principles of USSR, where it was purely centralized. That is, decisions were taken at the top, pushed to the bottom. So that period we have come up with Planning Commission, isn't it? But one change which you have observed, that is, this is basically a kind of, we followed something like imperative planning. Though we were saying that we'll follow mixed economy, there was a domination of what? PSUs. Okay. So this was an approach like something like one size fits all. One size fits all. You're taking decisions at the top and you're pushing it to the grassroots level. You're not understanding the problems at the grassroots level. So what we were doing is centralized or something like a top-down approach. Top-down approach. Okay. Now, after the 7th plan, basically from 1992, that is 8th 5-year plan itself, there was some change. What was the change? One is more flexible planning, okay, and from imperative to indicative, from centralization to decentralization, basically more decentralization. So this was also an important focus and shifted from socialistic economy to basically a market-based economy, and there is more of private participation. Earlier it was PSU, and here it was PSU driven. Now here it is basically more of what participation? Private sector participation. Okay. So the understanding is, with changing times, they observed that Planning Commission is redundant. Two options we have. One is change the functioning or come up with a new entity, obviously. Okay. And so we have decided we'll come up with a new entity called Niti Aayog. And here one more important aspect is, rather than 5-year plans, we are coming up with what? Perspective plan. That means you will have a 15-year vision, 20-year vision document, 3 to 5 year. 3 to 5 year. Sir, is your class notes and vision material sufficient? Why always you're in stress? Okay, class notes, previous questions, more than sufficient. Okay, and then add on vision material a little later, once some concepts are cleared. Okay, is that clear? If you ask me for prelims, PT, concepts, basic concepts, PT 365, previous questions, more than sufficient. Initially, you should not use such words, otherwise you will not study. Okay, so, but this class, I don't know, there's so much of stress. Okay, so that's why I'm making it clear now. PT, okay, PT. PT 365. PT. Conceptual clarity. Conceptual clarity, how you will get? You can get it from the class. You get it from the book. Okay, so concepts, PT, previous questions. UPSC conducted exam. Sufficient for prelims. Okay, yes. Leave that, come here. Okay. Perspective plan. Okay. Perspective plan. So now in the perspective plan, you are coming up with basically long term. Here you are having one short 3 to 5 year target is also there, and also there is a vision for 15-20 years. And here we said one size fits all doesn't work. We wanted something like a bottom up approach. Bottom up approach. Okay. More scope for innovation. More scope for innovation. We need a kind of a think tank. Yes. Okay. For giving proper advices. It's only an advice. Niti Aayog is basically an advisory entity to give proper advices to both central as well as the state government. So that is the reason you have separate regional councils. You have separate regional councils. Okay, so you have regional councils mainly to address specific issues. Specifically with respect to. So chief ministers as well as lieutenant governors are part of the regional council. So you are trying to solve some specific issues, basically get the data from the grassroots level and push it into the policy making. And you also have something like Team India Hub. So this Team India Hub acts like an interface between the center and the state. One is you need some group of people who can advise properly. On the other hand, somebody to create an interface between the center and the state. So based on the requirements, one is your bottom-up approach, okay, innovation, okay, solving specific problems. When we talk about state, that means regional councils. Niti Aayog is purely an advisory entity. Advisory. That means it cannot push the policy. It can only suggest, it can only advise. It cannot push and make them implement. But Planning Commission had some powers with respect to implementation as well. That means here there's a difference here. And Niti Aayog does not have any finance capacity. Okay, nothing. So all finance related aspects have to be handled by the Finance Commission. Polity is done for you? Some part? Yes. Fundamental rights. Okay. Fine. So Finance Commission is again a constitutional body. No? Constitutional body. Okay, fine. Let's not get there. Now advisory, purely advisory. So that is the reason, mainly because there is a change with respect to economic fundamentals, change with respect to governance, decentralization, 73rd, 74th constitutional amendments, change with respect to moving from imperative to indicative, moving towards market economy, more participation of private sector, focus on efficiency, focus on innovation, all this. Because of all these reasons, they have understood that Planning Commission will be redundant and we need to replace it with this new entity called Niti Aayog. Okay. So Planning Commission basically enjoyed some powers to allocate funds to the ministries and state government. But Niti Aayog does not have any finance related powers or fund allocation. It is purely a think tank, okay. And Planning Commission used to issue some dictums to the state governments for implementation of policy. That means you say you implement, but here it issues guidelines in consultation with state governments. There is nothing like a force when it comes to Niti Aayog. Okay, there is top-down approach that is followed by Planning Commission. Decisions at the top, because it was introduced during the centralized planning period. So obviously decisions at the top, pushing it to the bottom. Niti Aayog comes up with a bottom-up approach, bottom-up. Decisions were more centralized than the Planning Commission. Decisions are more decentralized, obviously, when it comes to Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog has a provision for part-time members. Niti Aayog has a provision for part-time members, but Planning Commission, there is no provision for part-time members. Okay. Planning Commission used to impose policy on states. There is no powers to impose policy. It is purely an advisory entity. Purely, it is essentially an advisory body. Niti Aayog is essentially an. So here you also have the regional councils, okay, And the governing councils, basically, the primary focus is to handle something like state-specific related problems or specific issues. So this is the basic difference. Okay, is this clear? Last thing, what you have written there? That's it, right? Okay, okay, fine. Write down. The chairperson of the committee is the Prime Minister. Write down. Chairperson of the committee is the Prime Minister. And the governing council consists of CMs of state, CMs of states, and lieutenant governors of UTs. Lieutenant governors of UTs. Okay, continue. Regional councils are set up. Regional councils are set up to address specific issues. Okay, specific issues. It comprises of CMs of state. It comprises of CMs of state. And the lieutenant governors of UTs and the lieutenant governors of UTs of the concerned region. Of the concerned region. Okay, next point. The whole staff of Niti Aayog, the whole staff of Niti Aayog is divided into two hubs. Is divided into two hubs. Okay, first one, knowledge and innovation hub. Knowledge and innovation hub. Write down. It has 12 to 14 verticals. It has 12 to 14 verticals that deal with different sectors. That deal with different sectors and builds Niti's think tank capabilities. And builds Niti's think tank capabilities. Builds Niti Aayog's think tank capabilities. Is that okay? 2. Team India Hub. Team India Hub. Team India Hub. Okay. It works as an interface. It works as an interface between the central and state governments. Between the central and state governments. Okay. Then put Niti Aayog on one side, Planning Commission on the other side. Okay. Niti Aayog on one side, planning, you have to write. It is there in the slide. I know you are observing the slide. Niti Aayog on one side, Planning Commission on the other side. 4 or 5 differences. Under Niti Aayog, just mention, it has no power to impose policy. Under Niti Aayog, it has no power to impose policy. Under Planning Commission, it had some powers to impose policy. It had some powers to impose policy. Okay. Under Niti Aayog, write down, state governments play a proactive role. state governments play a proactive role in decision making. State governments play a proactive role in decision making. Under Planning Commission, write down, decisions were more centralized. Decisions were more centralized under the Planning Commission. Decisions were more centralized under the Planning Commission. Is that okay? Under Niti Aayog, write down, bottom-up approach is followed. Bottom-up approach is followed. Under Planning Commission, top-down approach is followed. Top-down approach is followed. Okay. Under Niti Aayog, write down, it has a provision for part-time members. It has a provision for part-time members. Okay. Under Planning Commission, no provision for part-time members. No provision for part-time members. Is that clear? Under Niti Aayog, write down, cannot allocate funds. Cannot allocate funds. Under Niti Aayog, cannot allocate funds. These powers remain with Finance Ministry. Under Planning Commission, just write down, it enjoyed some powers. It enjoyed some powers to allocate funds. To ministries and state government. To ministries and state government. Okay. Is that okay? Okay. Write one question there. So UPSC asked this question, differences between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog earlier. Okay. One question, this I have mentioned it yesterday, just write it down. Critically evaluate the success of 5-year plans. The success of 5-year plans in addressing planned economic development in India. In addressing planned economic development in India. That's it. That's about the planning part. Okay. Now, before I start WTO, I told you, initially how many books you will ask. Then you will ask notes is sufficient. Now the stage has come. This is which class number? 13. See? That means by the time of 26th class, you will ask like, important topic. Now see here. For mains, listen. Now for prelims, I told you, for prelims, see prelims 1, concepts, mainly concepts. Remember, success in prelims is because of static. I am repeating it. It is because of static. Your skill in static. If I am good in three subjects, static wise, suppose let's say economics, economics is there, polity is there, environment, S&T, then there is no way that you will not clear prelims. There is no way that you will not clear prelims if, suppose, of course, I am not undermining other subjects. You don't think that way. Okay, so it's not that I am undermining other subjects. I am just saying. So I did not take the stand for history because for me, history, I feel it tough. So, okay. So basically ancient history, etc. So where we are talking about efficiency part, then I say, so if I am good with static, good with static. Okay, so for example, if I have to talk about static part, there is no way that prelims can be lost. 100% guarantee we will clear. I've written modern history. Okay, so whatever it is, it's just my assumption. I'm not saying this is what you can do anything, but here concepts. When I say concepts should be clear. Now asking what has to be read. Read notes. I've changed the order now. Okay, so read notes. Read Indian economic development. Okay. Solve previous questions. Solve previous questions. All previous questions. First solve from 1995 to 2023. Finish this off. Okay. And then some 20 marks. Not more mock tests. 20 marks. Okay. Here for current, sir, what has to be done? PT 365. Every day I am not reading newspaper. Then also will we clear? Yes, you will clear. Now, if I make such statement, you will not like it. That is why. We are not reading newspaper we are reading newspaper every day. Do you think we fail? Yes, you can fail. Yes, you can fail. There is no point in reading for 4 hours. If you check the paper, you will understand that there is no point in reading for 4 hours. Editorials are sufficient for enhancing my mains knowledge. Intelligently, I will read a newspaper for 1 hour and whatever I miss, I will cover in PT. For economics, is it compulsory that we read paper? Not required. For mains, yes. For mains, yes, because it will enhance my writing skill. It will give me better perspective with respect. Otherwise, for prelims, not required. PT, notes, previous question. 20 questions, 18 right, 17 right. What more do we want? Finish. Students got clarity. So, very easy. That's all. That's all. For mains, notes. Again, my notes. Okay. Plus some concepts like survey. Okay. Economic survey, that year survey, some data we will take. Data. No, see, I'll tell you, very easy solution. Notes, data, some, not now. This is also not now. And then some, we have our mains update also. Mains update material, isn't it? Mains update material. Ho gaya. Or like mains 365, like PT, mains update material. Okay, mains update material, notes and writing practice. What writing practice? Old questions. Now again I am repeating, old questions, not mock questions later, old questions. Some book like Arihant, etc. Answers they have written are below average, accepted. But still, when I do weekly 3 questions, so this is the target now. Listen, you will not ask again, online students. Don't ask, this is the final. Every week 3 questions. Brainstorm, every day 1 question, means weekly 7 questions, monthly 30 questions. Brainstorm means look at the question, 3 or 4, if your friends are intelligent. Friends are not intelligent, push them away. We don't want. Okay, read the question, check for the answer. You think what could be the answer. You may get 3 points. Check any 3 points are there extra, 6 points, finish. You know something, because of the classes or something, you get 1 point from the newspaper. If you remember, write it there. Otherwise, leave it. So like that, if I'm brainstorming every day 1 question also, every month it will be 30. And out of that, if I write weekly 2 questions also, I'll be writing around something like 8 questions every month. That is more than sufficient. If I do that, within 5 months, whatever previous questions are there, within 5 to 6 months, previous questions are over. And once previous questions are over, there are repetitions. I will show you. There are continuous food processing repeated 3 times. So this is the target. Target, old questions, brainstorm, notes, and at the end, mains material. In between, you want to read editorials, that is up to you. Otherwise, also will we clear? Definitely we will clear. 100%. This is 100%. Concepts are clear. Last 3 months we put in effort after prelim. Definitely we'll get very good scores in mains. You have to believe. You have to believe. But most of the time we will not do. In between 1.5 months you read, 15 days you'll check the prelims key. Okay, if you have 20 days, you don't know whether you will clear, so you'll be checking and wasting time. All that nonsense will happen. Otherwise, 3 months solid, we are good with the concepts, we read, we will get good scores. That's all. Over. Material got reduced. Finish. Now you are happy, I know. Clear? Okay, so yes, that's all. Anything required, I will tell you. Anything to be added, I will tell you later. We have a lot of classes. We are just in the 13th class. Okay, and one more thing is, the whole economics notes which we discuss should be made in 15 pages. Very important. Most important is this only. Whether you scribble like I have scribbled, like flowcharts, the whole economics notes in 15 pages, which I will revise 3 times before going to exam, and I will have a 2-page fact sheet. Facts. 2-page facts, that's all. I will only read these 17 pages at the end. Understood? So, for example, when I am reading planning, in 1 page, I can make a flowchart of planning. I'll show you later for WTO. Suppose huge topics like WTO. Suppose WTO is there. It's like it has something like lot of agreements and what they did, this. Everything should be in 1 page max. On one side, max 1 page, 2 sides of a page. That's all. That's it. Okay, so whole WTO. If I see planning, 1 page, I should get the whole of planning. Centralized planning, imperative, rolling, what they did in the first plan, what they did in the second, important areas, etc. Okay, why Niti Aayog, that's all, finish. Okay, and then positives and negatives of planning, finish. In 1 page, in one block, whole planning is over. We'll not refer everything back again and again. This is planning, finish. Monetary policy. Whole monetary policy in 1 page. What is there? Repo, reverse repo, CRR, SLR, and then you have only few things there. Mains, hardly one question can come. That is monetary transmission, inflation targeting. Finish. So that means a load is released. 1 page. Then don't think, what if one more? You will write. You revise this multiple times. You will only get the idea. Any question that comes up, automatically it will flow from your head. Getting it right. So this is the most important thing. 15 page. You have read hundreds of pages also. That should be added in this 15 page. Suppose you are like a genius. You remember everything what you read. So you decide to read many books. Accepted. You are an exception. But that also should be condensed into that material only. That 15 page material which I will read before going to exam. There is no question of reading 150 pages, 200 pages for a general study subject. 100% clear. Is it clear? 100, you say, is it true? I say 100% guarantee this is the correct strategy. With belief, not belief, with whatever you say, no? 100%, 100%. There is no other way. There is no other way. This is the way. This is the way. 15-20 page, revise multiple number of times. This is the way. Okay, so there is no 2 ways. You say you differ also, doesn't matter for me. Okay, so you differ with this, no, I'll read. Is that clear? Yes. Now let's go ahead with this new topic, that is WTO. This is a huge topic now. Okay, so full form of WTO, World Trade Organization. Okay. Now in this, what are the things? First is what the scope of the topic. The scope of the topic is, one is we have the Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. Okay, we'll try to understand. I'll dictate detailed notes. WTO, nothing to worry there. Okay, so then comes history of WTO. History is basically history, or basically you're talking about formation of WTO, how WTO came into existence. Okay, so WTO came into existence in 1995. Okay. So GATT being replaced by, okay, and then basic principles of WTO, or basic principles of WTO. Okay. Then we have the structure of WTO. Structure of WTO. And then we have the different agreements under WTO. Different agreements under WTO. We have the agreements like, okay, I'm not expanding it, I'll expand when I'm discussing. Okay, agreement on agriculture, trade related intellectual property rights, or we have trade related investment measures, okay, or we have general agreement on trade and services, okay, or we have agreements on sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So these are all some agreements under WTO. Okay, fine. And then we have different ministerial conferences. Okay, so ministerial conferences, you need not remember all the ministerial conferences. Okay, so you have to remember few only. One is something like the first ministerial conference, which was in Singapore. Okay, and then we have to remember the Doha ministerial conference, which was the 4th round. And then we have the Nairobi. Okay, we have the Bali ministerial conference. Then we have Nairobi. And then the most recent one, which is the Geneva. Okay, so that should be more than sufficient. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have, do you think WTO is biased for the benefit of developed countries? You know, these institutions are very much biased. For whom? For the benefit of, biased. For the benefit of developed countries. So we'll analyze why. Okay, for analyzing this, the whole of WTO you should know. The whole of WTO, if you know, then only you can analyze whether WTO is biased for the benefit of developed nations. Is that clear? So that is something which we will get to know after understanding everything. Clear till there? So this is the scope of the topic. So mainly prelims, there will be prelims question. If at all a prelims question comes up, it comes up from the agreements part. And mains, it can come up in your GS2. Okay, and we will look at it from the economic perspective. We'll look at it from the economic perspective. The international organizations also, there will be WTO discussion again. Is this clear till here? Yes. So the first question comes up. Now, when we talk about the capitalist thinkers, we have understood what is capitalism, etc. So when we talk about the capitalist thinkers like Adam Smith and David Ricardo, so these capitalist thinkers from the beginning, these capitalist thinkers were always promoting something like free trade. They were always supporting the concept of free trade. And they were always saying that free trade will always lead to the benefit of both developed countries as well as the developing and LDCs, both developing and LDCs. Okay, so their logic is very simple. Free trade will benefit everybody. Is that okay? So why? Because what they believe is no country is self-sufficient by itself. Their logic is very simple. No country is self-sufficient by itself means each country has its own comparative advantage. Each country has its own comparative advantage. Okay, so comparative or competitive advantages also. Comparative is in comparison to other countries. For example, if you ask competitive advantage, what is your competitive advantage? Each individual also has its competitive advantage. For example, maths is your competitive advantage means with less effort, I can get good scores in maths. That is what is competitive advantage. If you do not have the competitive advantage, then obviously you have to slog for 10-12 hours even to clear maybe the CSAT, let's say. So basically competitive advantage is that. Competitive advantage is something which I can do with less amount of effort. If parents understand that, the stress on the kid will be less. Otherwise you want your kid to run with, shark. The sharks are sitting and you put your kid into the group of sharks. But your kid probably in that field is not a shark. He's only a fish. Small fish. Now the problem is by the time he races and goes to the destination, there will be huge amount of depreciation. Okay, wear and tear. Okay, this is what is competitive advantage. Each individual has. Similarly, countries have comparative advantage. Comparative. For example, what is the developed countries are good with respect to technology and manufacturing. They are good. LDCs are good with respect to primary or agriculture related products. Okay, sugar, wheat production, rice. Okay, they are good with respect to agriculture related items, developed countries. So Adam Smith's logic is, or David Ricardo's logic is, free trade is for the benefit of everybody. It means the developed countries, they can produce these goods and they can export it. And the developing or LDCs, you produce agriculture related items, you sell it. So you are able to produce this at least possible cost, so you export this. You are able to produce this at least possible cost, you export this. LDC is least developed country. Okay, so you export this. So both these, so in this manner, both the developed as well as developing or LDCs are far more poorer than the developing nations. Okay, so like this, there will be benefit. So free trade will benefit everybody. What is the meaning of free trade? You are allowing this trade to happen with least trade barriers. Basics class, trade barriers. Remember, with least trade barriers, you are not restricting it. So remember, we said there are two types of trade barriers. So one is the tariff and another one is non-tariff. So when I say free trade, trade is happening between these entities with least amount of barriers. Is this clear? So now the question comes up, do you really think free trade is for the benefit of everybody? If no, why? Did I talk about it in the basics class? No. So you will tell me, you think and tell me, why is it that free trade may not be for the benefit of everybody? So the empirical evidence or practical evidence, when we go and see, we observe that the free trade is not for the benefit of everybody. Not for the benefit of everybody. Why? Because suppose as individuals, let's say, when my income is increasing, okay, my demand for primary goods will not increase in proportion to my income. For example, just because my income has increased, I will not stock my house with salt. Yes or no? Just because salt prices or sugar prices have come down, it's not that I will try to buy 100 kgs or 50 kgs of sugar and keep it with me. Are you able to get this? Okay, so the question here is, when our incomes increase, the demand for manufacturing goods, suppose my income is increasing, maybe I want a better iPad or a laptop, or I want a better motorcycle or a better car. So your demand for manufacturing items and technological items is going to increase in line with increase in income. But proportionately, when my income is increasing, proportionately my demand for necessities like the primary goods will not increase in proportion to my income. Are you able to get this point now? So this is something which we should understand. That means when we compare the change in demand to change in income, delta is change. Change in demand to change in income will be less or more for necessities. For necessities, what will happen to this change with respect to income? When my income is changing, the proportionate change in demand will be less. This will not change much. But means when my income is increasing or decreasing, either it can be increase or decrease, but necessities, demand for necessities will not change much. Yes or no? The change in demand is not in line with the change in incomes. But if I have to talk about these products, okay, there is a direct correlation between change in incomes and change in demand. When my income is increasing, automatically there will be more change with respect to demand when it comes to manufacturing or technology related items. Is this clear, everybody? Okay. Similarly, not only income, suppose even with respect to price. Okay, I would have asked this question earlier. Okay. So if given an opportunity, will you produce, is it better for us to produce products for the rich? I asked you this question, no? Okay, I'll ask you now. So you decided to come up with a startup, let's say, and you are a small player, obviously. Okay, so you decide to produce products for the rich, or will you decide to produce products for the middle class, or will you decide to produce products for the poor? Middle class, huh? Okay. Any logic? Population. Okay. You want to sell more, make more. Okay. Good, good. Rich, rich. Why rich? They will have buying capacity. Why you will not produce anything for poor? Not interested, no? Not interested. Not interested in producing. Okay. Now see here, I'll just ask you this. Poor people will have elastic demand or inelastic demand? Inelastic demand when it comes to price. Delta D by delta, change in demand to the price for the poor people, poor man. Poor man is somebody who spends, let's say, 90% of his income, 90 to 95% of his income on what? Basic needs. Basic needs. That means, generally the poor man should have what? Inelastic demand. That means change in price, they'll buy the same thing. Max, his consumption patterns are fixed. 90 to 95% of his money he is going to spend on basic needs. Okay. Is that clear? So, for basic needs, change in price, change in demand, there will be a minor change only, not much. How about rich? Ambani madam will have elastic or inelastic demand? Madam, take madam. Madam with respect to price, will she have elastic demand or inelastic demand? See, if the car price increases by 20,000, rice price increased by 15 rupees, doesn't matter. Unless and until it's a Reliance product. Only then she will check, oh, this price is increasing, so it's not good. Okay, otherwise, that doesn't matter, no. Maybe a handbag which is costing 50,000 more. Kya farak? It's like she will buy, anyhow she will buy. So this is basically, rich also may have what? Inelastic demand. Generally. Why? Because price may not be a major factor for them. Price, increase in rice prices, wheat prices, okay, increase in petrol prices, diesel prices, increase in Maruti Swift. First of all, they will not use Maruti Swift. No. Okay, so that doesn't matter. Price impact on demand is less. Middle class. If you say use vitamin D fortified milk, pay 1 rupee more, they'll say I'll stand in sunlight. Now this is Now 1 rupee more you ask, not 1 rupee, 50 paisa more. They'll say Ramdev Baba told no, direct source of sunlight is better. We will not spend 50 paisa. They are very calculative and they are very price sensitive. And you said you will cater to middle class because you were greedy. Why would you want to sell more? But middle class means you have to be price competitive. Means you have to compete with companies like Amazon. Amazon is price competitive. Amazon will be successful in India because Amazon is playing on price and major population is middle class, and tomorrow middle class segment is going to increase, means Amazon will be successful. So this is something, that means you want to compete with these companies, you need to be price sensitive, and generally they have elastic demand. Generally elastic. Slight increase in price, they will say, wait, we will not buy. They will shift very fast and they will be, so increase. Most of the people who are using the air travel today, they are basically who have recently shifted from train. And that's the reason, slight increase, you increase, they'll say, chalo, jaate hain na train mein. Okay, they have a lot of time, no issues, no? 2 days also they'll travel, 2.5 days, they'll enjoy the train journey. So that is the difficulty for Indigo or maybe SpiceJet. This is what you should understand. So this is basically the elastic. Elastic means what? The change in demand to change in price. When the price changes, demand changes very fast. When the price changes, with slight change in price, there will be more impact on demand. Is that okay? Clear there? Okay, now come back here. Suppose in this example, where we are talking about free trade for the benefit of everybody, let's say the incomes are increasing for both. Incomes are increasing. Okay, developing countries' incomes are also increasing. Developed countries' incomes are also increasing. Incomes are increasing. When incomes are increasing, from countries like India, there will be more demand for manufacturing goods, more demand. We want to buy new cars, etc. So more demand for manufacturing goods. But when their incomes are increasing, proportionately, there will not be so much of demand for the primary goods. As simple as that. When there is no much demand for primary goods, over a period of time, the prices of these primary goods will fall. Over a period of time, the prices will fall because no much demand of the primary goods. Even though the price fall, they are also price inelastic. Just because prices have fallen, that doesn't mean the demand will exponentially increase. It will not. That means even when the prices fall, the demand will not exponentially shoot up. Are you able to get this? And moreover, the developed countries use these organizations like WTO to push free trade. They are more interested because they are capitalistic, so they want to expand their market. So this is how the developing countries lose out in the international trade. Is this clear, everybody? And this aspect, that is free trade, is not for the benefit of everybody. Free trade need not be for the benefit of everybody. This hypothesis is called as the Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. This hypothesis is called as the Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. So Prebisch-Singer hypothesis says free trade may not be beneficial for all the nations involved. Is this clear? Okay. So put the heading WTO. Clear, no? Understood? Yes, write down. The traditional theory of free trade, proposed by Adam Smith, stated that free trade should result in higher profits for all the nations engaged. That is, it is virtually impossible for any nation to produce all their consumption requirement themselves at least possible cost. Full stop and continue. Least possible cost. A particular country will find it profitable. in producing commodities, with a comparative advantage, it should export such commodities, and import other commodities, on the basis of this economic principle, Continue, full stop. The developed countries often argue to promote free trade. The developed countries often argue to promote free trade, through organizations like WTO, But the conclusion of the above theory can change. When we look at an empirical evidence, with respect to LDCs, empirical means practical evidence, with respect to LDCs. Continue, full stop and continue. For most of the LDCs, their comparative advantage lies in producing agriculture related products, such as coffee, sugar, rice, cotton, etc. Okay. Continue. It has been empirically proved that the income elasticity of demand is lower for these products, In contrast, income elasticity for manufacturing goods is higher. Continue. The result of these two effects leads to decline in relative price of primary products. primary products. Okay. This decline does not lead to significant increase in demand. Significant increase in demand. Significant increase in demand. In bracket, inelastic demand with respect to prices. Inelastic demand with respect to prices. Inelastic demand with respect to prices. Is that okay? Close the bracket. These, full stop and continue. These two phenomenon together will make export earnings of LDCs highly unstable, thus making free trade harmful for them. Thus making free trade harmful for them. Thus making free trade harmful for them. The above finding is popularly known as Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. Prebisch, P-R-E-B-I-S-C-H, Prebisch-Singer hypothesis. Continue. This finding is the issue of conflict. This finding is the issue of conflict. This finding is the issue of conflict between developed and developing nations. Between developed and developing nations on aspects related to international trade. On aspects related to international trade. Continue. Apart from this, developed countries are protecting their agricultural market. Developed countries are protecting their agriculture market. Protecting their agriculture market by giving huge subsidies. By giving huge subsidies which are adversely affecting developing countries' market. Which are adversely affecting developing countries' market. Okay. So that means in the international trade, when you say free trade and all, this is the main issue of conflict. Now listen. So what happened is, after the Second World War, most of the developed countries were routed because of war, were hit because of war. After the Second World War, most of the developed countries were hit because of war, and they decided there should be something that has to be done to revive the economies of these countries. Revive the economies because they're hit. War will always affect the economy of the country, isn't it? So after the Second World War, there is some instability in most of the developed world, and therefore they wanted to revive these economies which were hit because of war. So to handle that, a particular conference was held in US, which is also called as the Bretton Woods Conference. Now in this Bretton Woods Conference, there were some institutions that were suggested. And they said these institutions to some extent can solve the problem. So one such institution was the World Bank. World Bank, or we call it as International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD. Initially it was the only entity, initially. Now World Bank group has 5 entities. Okay. Then along with World Bank, they have also suggested another institution called IMF. Heard of this word, right? International Monetary Fund. And IMF mainly helps countries to come out of BOP crisis. BOP crisis. Along with these two, another organization was also suggested, which is called as the International Trade Organization, ITO. But what happened was, these two institutions came into existence. And therefore, World Bank and IMF are also called as Bretton Woods twins. Bretton Woods twins, because these two institutions also have come into existence. ITO did not come into existence because of lack of consensus among member countries, and instead of an organization, an agreement came into existence. Agreement came into existence, which is called as General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. So, since there was lack of consensus between countries, this organization did not come into existence. Instead of an organization, an agreement came into existence. And this agreement was the main entity which was handling something called as the multilateral trade. Multilateral trade. So, WTO-like organizations are not going to handle bilateral trade. They are going to handle something like the multilateral trade, trade between more than 2 countries. Okay, so multilateral trade. Now, after the formation of this agreement called GATT, so GATT was handling aspects related to multilateral trade. And under regular circumstances, like every regular period, there were some negotiations which were held among the member countries, which are also called as the multilateral trade negotiations. So, group of countries will come together, sit, discuss what is important, where there should be focus, etc. So, these are called as what? Multilateral trade negotiations. Are you able to get this? So, these multilateral trade negotiations were held on a continuous basis. But in the 8th multilateral trade negotiation, this was basically between 1986 to 1994. Okay. So, this was also called as the Uruguay round. Uruguay is a country. It is also called as the Uruguay round. So, 8th multilateral trade negotiations, many issues came to the forefront. They felt that this agreement called GATT is not efficient enough to handle multilateral trade anymore. Why? Because there's a lot of change with respect to multilateral trade. There is something like globalization, expansion, etc. So, what they have identified some main problems. First thing is, GATT agreement was mainly dealing with goods, trade with respect to goods. GATT did not cover aspects related to services. So, this was one. So, but there is services trade that has already increased across the globe by the time of 1980s. Okay, 40 years after formation of GATT, GATT. Okay, so there is huge demand for services trade, but GATT was not handling anything related to services. And if at all there are conflicts with respect to member countries, you do not have a very strong dispute settlement body. So, you do not have a strong dispute settlement. There was some dispute settlement mechanism, but you do not have a strong dispute settlement body under the GATT system. So, because of this, handling complex trade related aspects was becoming difficult under GATT. Okay. And along with this, there were many issues which came to the forefront, and one of the most important issue that came to the forefront for discussion was this aspect called agricultural subsidy. What is this agricultural subsidy? Developed countries give lot of agricultural subsidy and to protect their domestic market, and this was hampering the development of the countries like India or LDCs. Are you able to get this? So, this is one big challenge. Why? Because too much of agricultural subsidy given by countries like US. and they could not reach any consensus with respect to agricultural subsidy. No consensus. Means they were fighting, but there is no solution. Developed countries will not reduce it. Developing countries are unhappy. So they were fighting with respect to this aspect called agricultural subsidy. And every time we observe that there will be a deadlock. Deadlock is something like there is no solution. So there is no solution with respect to aspects related to agricultural subsidy. Along with this, there were other things also that were discussed, like the intellectual property rights. IPRs you call it as. Intellectual property right is something like IPRs, like the patents, copyrights, etc. So developed world was not happy with respect to the IPR rights or IPR rules of countries like India. They are not happy. They are never happy basically with respect to our patent rules and regulations. Okay. Similarly, they also wanted to cover services related aspects or promote something like investments also, promote something like investments. So all these discussions came to the forefront in the 8th MTN in the Uruguay round in 1986. Is that clear, everybody? Okay. So most important aspect where there was a deadlock, they could not find a solution, was this aspect called as agricultural subsidy. And that point of time, the head of GATT, okay, that point of time, there was this person called Sir Arthur Dunkel. So this Dunkel created something called as the Dunkel draft. And in this Dunkel draft, he has packed it with all these aspects, including aspects related to agricultural subsidy. And this Dunkel draft later on was put to vote. Dunkel draft was put to vote at a place called Marrakesh. Marrakesh is in Morocco. So Marrakesh. So we also call it as the Marrakesh Agreement. Marrakesh Agreement. Okay. And this Marrakesh Agreement has laid the foundation for this organization called WTO. This Marrakesh Agreement has laid the foundation for this organization called WTO in the year 1995. And this organization has replaced an agreement called GATT. This organization has replaced this agreement called GATT. Is this clear, everybody? So this is how WTO came into existence in 1995. One more important observation is, if we see GATT was only a agreement. WTO is basically an organization. GATT did not cover services related aspects in trade. WTO covers both goods as well as services. Okay. So and WTO is an organization. GATT is only an agreement. Okay. And GATT did not have a strong dispute settlement body, but WTO also has a strong dispute settlement body. So this is the basic difference between GATT and WTO. So here, this area WTO, there will be a lot of facts also coming up. Is this clear, everybody? Okay, so this is the evolution of WTO, or this is how WTO has come into existence. Dunkel draft contains issues related to agriculture, subsidy, patents. They have agreed on a partial basis. On a partial basis, they have agreed. And they have agreed that there will also be some agreements coming under WTO which will deal with these areas. For example, to deal with agriculture, agreement on agriculture was put in place. To deal with services, GATT's agreement, general agreement on trade in services, like that. Okay, so is this clear? Put the heading evolution of WTO. Evolution of WTO. The formation of WTO, can be traced back to the economic situation, immediately after Second World War. Immediately after Second World War. International economic cooperation was a necessity. International economic cooperation was a necessity. International economic cooperation was a necessity. And to achieve this goal, a number of international organizations were suggested. A number of international organizations were suggested. Under Bretton Woods Conference. Under Bretton Woods Conference. Is that okay? Under Bretton Woods Conference. Continue. Apart from formation of World Bank and IMF, apart from formation of World Bank and IMF, an organization called ITO, ITO, in bracket write International Trade Organization, close the bracket. An organization called ITO was also proposed to tackle trade barriers, and other issues related to trade. Okay, full stop and continue. Although ITO was never formed, due to lack of consensus, another agreement called GATT, another agreement called GATT, in bracket write General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. Close the bracket. Another agreement called GATT was signed by 23 countries in Geneva. Continue. GATT came into existence on 1st Jan 1948. And till the formation of WTO in 1995. GATT was the only multilateral agreement governing international trade. Is the speed okay? Am I too slow? I can increase the speed? Okay. Decrease? Oh. Continue. Totally 8 MTNs were held. MTNs in bracket write multilateral trade negotiations. Totally 8 MTNs were held under GATT. And MTNs tried to tackle some of the basic issues some of the basic issues related to international trade, some of the basic issues related to international trade, like tariff and non-tariff barriers, like tariff and non-tariff barriers. But within 40 years of operation of GATT, its members felt that the system was inefficient. Its members felt that the system was inefficient. 40. Its members felt that the system was inefficient to handle the problems of globalizing world economy. Continue. These issues came to the forefront. During the 8th MTN of GATT, in Uruguay, during the 8th MTN is what? Multilateral trade negotiation. During the 8th MTN of GATT in Uruguay. Okay. Uruguay round. Okay, continue. During Uruguay round, talks took place on many new areas. Of the trading system. Like trade in services, comma, IPRs. What is IPR? Intellectual property rights. IPRs, etc. Okay, continue. Apart from emergence of these new issues, first of all, you don't decide. Let me decide. Okay, so because there is lot of, there also, sir, please dictate slowly means only economics 1 year dictation will be there. Now, there are two things here. One is we have to complete the notes very properly for all the mains topics. So, you also have to adjust to the speed. Two, I also have to slow down a little. We will figure out a middle path in between. Okay, so because either, sir, dictate slowly. Where was I? Like, will dictate slowly. Write down. More slow means I will also sleep. Apart from emergence of these new issues, write down. Differences also arose among member countries. On issues like agricultural subsidy. To tackle this deadlock, Sir Arthur Dunkel, Sir, Arthur, A-R-T-H-U-R. Dunkel, D-U-N-K-L-E. Sir Arthur Dunkel proposed Dunkel draft. Sir Arthur Dunkel proposed Dunkel draft. Dunkel draft. On the basis of this draft, an act was signed by 123 nations. An act was signed by 123 nations, including India, on April 15, 1994. On April 15, 1994, at Marrakesh. As a result of Marrakesh Agreement, WTO came into existence. On 1st Jan 1995. On 1st Jan 1995, with its headquarters at Geneva. Continue. Currently, WTO comprises 164 members. Currently, WTO consists of 164 members. And the current head of WTO is what I have written on the board. Okay, so please, current head of लिखो. Is that okay? Done? Nobody will ask. A, L, A, W, E. This is a KG class, no? A, B, C, we learn now. Okay, now. This is clear? Done. Okay? Done? Okay. Done. See, principles of WTO. I will dictate, first listen. I will dictate after 5 minutes. First listen. One principle is very important for exam. Others are simple. See, one is the principle of trade. We call it as trade without discrimination. Trade without discrimination. Okay, first principle is trade without discrimination. In this, we have two subcategories. One is called as the national treatment. Okay, one is the national treatment. Okay, and second one is the most favored nation. The concept of most favored nation. National treatment and most favored nation. Okay, so here the first principle, trade without discrimination. Okay, so when I say trade without discrimination, this is a subcomponent. There are some agreements also in WTO which are based on this concept of national treatment. So what is this national treatment? Suppose, let's say this is India, okay, and there are products which have already moved into India. Let's say solar panels are manufactured in India by other countries also. US is manufacturing, France is manufacturing, etc. So what is the meaning of national treatment is, when government, let's say, is procuring some raw materials, whatever it is for its solar project, government has to give the same treatment to the foreign entities as it is giving to the national entities or the domestic entities. I am repeating it. So here, let's say in a particular country, this is India, there are certain companies which are producing products, let's say solar panels in India. They are from, let's say these companies are from US, UK, Russia, whichever place it is. And when Indian government, let's say, is procuring some solar panels for its solar project, Indian government should give national treatment to the foreign entities which are operating in India. Are you able to get this now? That means Indian government should not give more preference to the domestic entities. It is indirectly means you are not giving national treatment to the foreign entities. Now, most important aspect under national treatment concept is the concept of national treatment will only be applicable after the product has entered into the domestic territory. After the product has entered into the domestic territory. It means levying something like customs duty. Customs, remember? Yes, basics class. So, customs is levied on what? Import and export. So, levying customs duty is not a violation of principle of national treatment. Levying customs duty is not a violation of principle of national treatment because customs duty is levied before the product has entered into the domestic territory. Customs duty is always levied before the product, but the concept of national treatment becomes applicable after the product has entered into the domestic territory. That means if a country is levying customs duty, it is not seen as a violation of this principle of national treatment. Suppose a foreign company is pushing its products, India can levy something like customs duty and it cannot be seen as a violation of this principle of national treatment. Is that clear, everybody? Understood? Okay, so national treatment will be applicable only after the product has entered into the domestic territory. Okay, clear. Okay, now there is another concept called most favored nation. Okay, so what happens in this concept of most favored nation is once you become a member of WTO, by default, the countries start giving MFN status to other countries. Countries start giving MFN status to other countries. What does that mean? I will not treat that country, I will not discriminate that country because that country is something like an enemy nation, etc. In simple words, India in 1995 itself has given MFN status to Pakistan. Okay. Pakistan did not give MFN status to India. Okay, that's their problem. Okay, India has given MFN status to Pakistan. It means India will not alienate Pakistan with respect to trade because Pakistan is an enemy nation. We will also treat Pakistan on similar lines as we treat all other member countries of WTO when it comes to trade. So we will not say that Pakistan we will discriminate you. In fact, there is nothing like a most favored entity here. We will treat all the member countries on similar lines. Okay, but later on, due to Pulwama attack, etc., later we revoked MFN status to Pakistan. Wantedly, we revoked MFN status after the terror attack. Why? Because wantedly we did it because to show Pakistan that we will discriminate you. We will discriminate you if you are following such mechanism. We are going to discriminate you. We will not treat you on similar lines as we treat all other member countries of WTO. Is that clear, everybody? So here MFN status means once an MFN status is given, by default you have to give. So it means that once MFN is given, you will not be discriminated in terms of international trade. You will be treated on similar lines as we treat all other member countries. Is this clear? Okay. Pakistan has not given. If we want, we could have filed cases against Pakistan. But we are not interested in Pakistan because we don't do much trade with Pakistan. Much trade. Suppose China is there, we do a lot of trade with China. But Pakistan, very limited trade. So there is no discussion of getting that MFN status from Pakistan. Is this clear? Then are there any exceptions for MFN? There are exceptions also for MFN status. There are exceptions. For example, bilateral agreements between two countries. Bilateral agreements. There are some bilateral. Suppose India, Sri Lanka have signed a bilateral agreement. Bilateral agreement or a free trade agreement. Free trade agreement. Okay. So free trade. Heard of this word, free trade agreement? So let's say India, Sri Lanka free trade agreement. That means whenever trade is done between India and Sri Lanka, probably the customs duties are almost negligible. Why? Because we have signed FTA with Sri Lanka. Okay. So that does not mean all other member countries this will apply. This is an exception. Why this is an exception? Because it is a bilateral agreement which is outside WTO. So this is an exception. This will not apply when it comes to MFN. Are you able to get this? Okay. Similarly, there are regional cooperations, isn't it? For example, India moved out of, let's say, RCEP. Heard of this? Okay. So when we talk about these regional groupings like NAFTA, okay, or when we have even SAARC nations have, okay, so SAFTA. So when we talk about these kind of free trade agreements which are signed between regional, today you observe that there are too many regional groupings. What is this regional groupings? These group of countries will follow similar kind of trade rules among themselves. They will reduce the trade barriers, tariff and non-tariff barriers when they are doing trade. But this is among that regional groupings only. This is also an exception with respect to MFN. Just because these countries are following some trade rules, these trade rules will not be applicable to all other member countries of WTO, all other member countries of WTO. Is this clear? So that means there are exceptions even for MFN, bilateral agreements, okay, or regional groupings. These are all exceptions when it comes to WTO. I hope it is clear. Okay. So this is about trade without discrimination. So first we will write this. We will write and then we will. That's better. We will understand. First one, trade without discrimination. Trade without discrimination. Under that, principle of national treatment. Principle of national treatment. Write down. It means treating foreign and local goods equally. It means treating foreign and local goods equally. Foreign and local goods equally. Continue. It only applies once a product comma service or item of intellectual property enters the domestic market. Enters the domestic market. Is that okay? Enters the domestic market. Continue. Therefore, charging customs duty on import, is not a violation of principle of national treatment. Is not a violation of principle of national treatment, even if locally produced products are not charged an equivalent tax. Even if locally produced products are not charged an equivalent tax. That means locally produced products are not charged any tax like the customs. In spite of that, customs can be levied on them. That cannot be seen as a violation of national treatment, because customs is always levied before the product has entered into the market. The concept of, there was a case also, solar panels related case, where US filed case against India. Okay, that India was violating the principles of national treatment. India was violating the principles of, it was not giving equal opportunity to those entities which are producing products in India, and India lost the case in WTO. India lost the case in WTO, and because of this, India also started taking each individual state in US. India also found out that different states in US were also violating the principle of national treatment. And so India started taking each state in US to the dispute settlement body under WTO. Like that they will be fighting. I think you're getting my point, right? Okay. So then put the heading principle of MFN. Principle of MFN. In international economic transactions, MFN is the status, MFN is the status or level of treatment accorded by ACCOR, accorded by one state to another, in international trade, Full stop. Continue. The term means that the country which is the recipient, of this treatment, must nominally receive equal trade advantages. Must nominally receive equal trade advantages. Nominally receive equal trade advantages as the most favored nation. As the most favored nation. As the most favored nation. By the country granting such treatment. By the country granting such treatment. Continue. In a nutshell, MFN is non-discriminatory. MFN is non-discriminatory trade policy. Non-discriminatory trade policy. As it ensures equal trading. As it ensures equal trading among all WTO members. Among all WTO members. Is that okay? Then put exceptions. Exceptions, just write bilateral agreements. Bilateral agreements. Comma. Regional groupings. Regional groupings. Regional groupings. Is that okay? So then second principle, put the heading 2. This is very simple only, write down 2. Predictability of trade rules. This is about trade without discrimination. Under that, two things we have discussed, MFN and national treatment. Then the second one, write down, predictability of trade rules. Predictability of trade rules. Rules. Predictability of trade rules. See why the trade rules should be predictable. That means a government should not change the trade rules regularly. Trade rules should be fixed and they should be allowed. So it should not like every now and then government comes up with changing the trade rules. Why every now and then if government is going to change the trade rules, it will affect the business. For example, today, does Walmart have any share in Flipkart? What is? Flipkart is? That's what I'm asking. Walmart, heard of Walmart? So you would have seen this person, heard of this man called Jack Ma. He makes lot of noise in the YouTube. Okay, he is the owner of Alibaba. Okay. He makes a lot of noise. No, I was rejected by Harvard and all that stuff. But now he says he has challenged Walmart earlier. Okay. What was the challenge? He said, I will cross. Obviously, you can cross because Walmart was a physical entity. So, expanding physical brick and mortar businesses is difficult. Okay. And Alibaba is basically run on, this is basically e-commerce. And therefore, expanding e-commerce businesses, scaling e-commerce businesses will be faster. And therefore, confidently, Jack Ma said, see Walmart, I will cross. Yes, very good. Okay. And when it comes to retail related investments in India also, especially the e-commerce businesses. Okay. So we say Amazon is there. Amazon is basically, just for understanding only, Amazon is a kind of a marketplace model. Marketplace. So Amazon, logically, Amazon is not a producer. Amazon is basically creating a market space or a marketplace for the buyers and sellers. Okay. Now, Amazon products may be there in the shelf, but it is not through the name of Amazon generally. Okay. Now, here if you see, these sellers are there who are putting their products in the market space. Okay. In India, when it comes to such a marketplace model, FDI is allowed. You allow FDI. FDI is promoted. FDI, foreign direct investment. FDI is allowed, pushed. Okay, so that is the reason you have companies like Amazon. Okay, so but at the same time, suppose these sellers who are selling the products, if Amazon is going to hold, let's say 51% or 50% or 40% stake, just an example, if Amazon is going to hold stake in these companies, any of the companies, then Amazon obviously, there will not be fair competition. What is fair competition? Amazon may probably shelf those products first in the market. Obviously, the website also will show you only these products first. You can do that. Okay, so that means there will be more favoritism kind of thing that can happen, and a smaller player may be not visible in the marketplace. So government at times may come up with certain conditions and controls even in the e-commerce market. Are you able to get this? E-commerce market. Okay. Similarly, there can be an inventory model. So this is basically a marketplace model. In the inventory model, generally in India, there is no FDI allowed. FDI is not allowed into inventory. Inventory means basically the producer produces it and he is going to shelf his product. Okay, for example, earlier Jabong and all, like you produce it, you are the producer, you produce it, and then you place your product in the market. You place your product in the market. Here, Amazon is not a producer here, it's not producing anything. It has created a shelf or a space or a marketplace for the buyers and sellers to participate. Now, these are some rules. Obviously, government wants to bring some restrictions on e-commerce transactions because the other brick and mortar businesses are getting affected and there is scope for some smaller players being neglected, etc. Government can regulate. Now let's say, based on the guidelines of the government, etc., let's say Walmart decided to buy Flipkart, okay, major share, so that it can expand online also, isn't it? Okay. Now after that deal is over, now suddenly government comes up with something like blocking marketplace model or something. This is something like you're changing the trade rules. So every now and then, if the trade rules are going to be changed, then the investors will find it difficult to make investment decision. Investment decision is not just about, you know, putting a product in a country, but it also deals with something like whether to buy a particular firm or not. Okay, so based on the conditions, I think you're getting my point. So when they know that they can expand the business in the e-commerce, then only they will take such decisions of putting money into Flipkart or whatever it is. But very often, if government is going to change the rules, okay, then investors will not have confidence. And investor confidence is one of the most important factors for business. Investor confidence is one of the most important factors for business. Is that clear, everybody? So always for international trade, they also talk about predictability of trade. The trade rules should be predictable. Suddenly you can't come and say, no, this has to be changed, that has to be changed. I think you're getting my point. Write down. I'll give you a break. I know I can. Predictability of trade rules. Vodafone, what is... That's a tax related. That's different. Vodafone case, actually Vodafone was going ahead with tax avoidance. Vodafone case. Did I talk about? Forget about Vodafone. In the taxing class we will do it. Write down the multilateral trading system. The multilateral trading system is an attempt to make business environment stable and predictable. Stable and predictable. Continue. Under WTO, when countries agree to open their markets, for foreign goods or services, they have to bind their commitments. Okay, that's all. Take a break. Okay. So I've written predictability of trade rules. India.
Preferred trade status was revoked by US administration during Trump time. So how it is different from most favored status?
Preferred, that is different actually. That is an alienation. We'll talk about it later. No, it is basically most of the. You have to look at the majority here. Majority. China is good in manufacturing. That's a different aspect here. China is good in manufacturing, but on an average, basically. So when we talk about least developed countries on an average, they are good in agriculture related aspects. So you can't take one country. So here you are talking about China. China is good in manufacturing, that's known. Okay, so but here on an average, if you say free trade is for the benefit of everybody, then we are making a comparison between developed and LDCs or developed and developing nations. Okay. So the income criteria, per capita income criteria, income criteria obviously. Wait. National treatment is something that there should not be bias. Okay. What is the meaning of national treatment? There should not be bias. How you can, for example, let's say government is procuring some raw material for its project. So government says we will buy all the raw material from Indian manufacturers. No, not choice. No, here if you say, if you go by choice, then the government says, let me buy from Indian manufacturers. Then all these countries which are, all these products which are there, which have entered into Indian market, they are going to suffer. You will get this. Okay, so it's not about choice. No, if you say choice, then you will say will not buy any foreign products, will not use foreign raw material for production, etc. Then automatically these products are going to get affected. Levying high customs duty is also levying trade barrier. Okay, so too much of trade barriers means you are following protectionism. So based on that logic, you can go and appeal in the WTO. But you can't say it is a violation of principle of national treatment. See, if you want to create problems for other countries with respect to trade, you can do it through any means, no? So how do you protect your domestic market? WTO promotes what? Free trade. Promotes free trade means barriers should be less. So to restrict free trade, you can come up with trade barriers. Okay. So it can be non-tariff barriers also. For example, Alfonso mangoes from India, they said will not buy. That will also affect trade. Or suppose countries like China are dumping products into India. That will also affect trade. So India can go ahead and levy anti-dumping duty. If China doesn't like that, China will go to the dispute settlement body and say, we have not dumped the products and still India has levied something like anti-dumping duty. So national treatment is only one aspect. No, why are you looking from a narrow perspective? National treatment, if you are not giving to the foreign products which have already entered into the domestic market, they can go to WTO and complain. What they will complain? They'll say India has violated national treatment. Always remember, first of all, whenever a product enters into countries like India, okay, so first thing is something like the basic customs duty we will levy. So basic custom, I thought I'll talk about it. Taxing. Customs duty is what? Customs is levied on what? Import and export. Okay. Now you are levying a basic customs duty. This is not a violation. You can't go and file case in WTO saying that India has levied this basic customs duty. It is a violation of national treatment. You can't say this. Okay. Why? Because national treatment will only apply when the product has already entered. But if very high, like if Indian government comes up with too much of customs duties, means it is trying to follow what? Protectionism. Earlier in 1960s and 70s, how did we protect our domestic market? We protected our domestic market by increasing the custom duty. Okay, so that that product which enters will become costly in India, nobody will buy. So that is how you can do. Now that means indirectly you are following what? Protectionism. You are following protectionism means you are going against the principles of free trade. You are going against the principles of free trade. Based on this logic, you go and complain in the WTO. Based on that logic, you go and complain in WTO. It's not that you have to complain on only one aspect, no. Similarly, in 2019, what happened is, Modi ji started giving too much of subsidies for sugar exports. Sugar export. Lot of subsidies. Reason being very simple, in India, sugarcane production increased. So, sugarcane production in India increased. Because of this, in India, sugar prices started decreasing. So, when sugar prices were falling down, sugar mill owners, they were making loss. If they make loss, they will not pay a guaranteed price. There is a guaranteed price which you have to pay, like the MSP for the sugar, which is called as the fair remunerative price to the producer. Who is the producer here? Farmer can be a producer. So, violated. So, what government did? Government said, if sugar prices have to stabilize in India, so they started giving lot of subsidies for sugar export related subsidies, so that sugar can be exported easily, so that supply of sugar in India will decrease, sugar prices will increase. Based on that logic, government decided to give export subsidy. But there are other countries like Brazil, etc. And these countries are good with respect to sugar. And these countries went to WTO, started filing cases against India that excessive subsidies with respect to sugar export have been given by the government. And then government had to fight back. Are you able to get this? Like this, when we talk about a particular case which is filed in WTO, it can be filed under any basis. Okay, it can also be filed, for example, at the end, there can be something like Indian government has levied something like anti-dumping duty. Actually, anti-dumping duty is only applicable when there is dumping. Suppose China is efficient and its product prices are low, you can't levy anti-dumping duty. You can only levy anti-dumping if you can prove dumping. You have to prove dumping. How do you prove? Our officers silently have to go, check the prices in China of that product and collect data that the product prices are far lower than, the product price is far higher there, but the product, wantedly China is selling that product at a lesser price in India. You have to collect data and prove dumping. If you fail proving dumping, that means the onus of dumping and lies on the country which got affected. India got affected because of dumping. India has to prove that China has dumped products. If you fail to prove, then again China can go and fight it out in the WTO. Are you able to get this? Like this. So, national treatment is one aspect. So, even there will be cases where Indian government is forcing the foreign companies to compulsorily use local content. Local content. What is this local content now? Suppose you are manufacturing some defense equipment in India. You procure so much percentage of raw material from domestic, micro, small and medium enterprises. Okay. Such kind of conditions if we are keeping, and you are asking them to procure from whom? Indian manufacturers. That means again you are not giving equal preference to foreign goods which are operating in India. So now they will go and they will say Indian government is forcing us to use local content requirement. Now which is against the principles of trade, it is also against the principles of national treatment. And they will go and fight it out in the WTO. Now whether they will win the case, they will not win the case, that's a different thing. But they have this option of filing the case that yes, there is a violation because Indian government is forcing us to use. Indian government actually asked them to use local content requirement for defense. Okay, so and also with respect to something like single brand retail earlier, single brand retail. So you have multi-brand retail. Under a multi-brand retail means what? Under a single roof, you are selling all the products, groceries and all. Single brand retail is something like the Nike, Adidas. Okay. So when we talk about single brand retail, FDI, 100% FDI, 100% foreign direct investment was allowed long back. But when government took a policy about multi-brand retail, allowing FDI into multi-brand retail, then there were a lot of protests in Mumbai. Lot of protests. Many places, specifically Mumbai, traders started protesting, why are you allowing foreign direct investment into multi-brand retail? If you are allowing foreign direct investment into multi-brand retail means you will have organizations like Walmart coming up in India. So when Walmart like institutions come up in India, the small kirana shops, mom and pop shops cannot compete. Economies of scale. Maybe kirana shop you will buy products based on relationship. So you will pay after 1 month or whatever it is. You maintain good relation with chacha bhija do, baad mein pay kar denge. That is the only thing. So relationship based it runs. But otherwise if you have to compare prices and all, it becomes very difficult. Okay, so therefore many jobs will be lost. So there were protests. Now for this you can't go and file cases in WTO. They can't file. That was government's decision. Government said slowly we will liberalize norms with respect to. So just because WTO is there, it's not that they can force upon everything. Similarly, when we also put up some restrictions, they will also go and file it in the dispute settlement body. You file, they give explanation, then they want to try to resolve it amicably, sit and discuss and resolve, and then still it is not happening, then again in the dispute settlement body. And first of all, this organization like WTO after 2019, the dispute settlement body itself is not working properly. I thought I'll talk about all this because otherwise you'll... So that means the main body is dispute settlement body, and in this dispute settlement body, whenever a dispute arises, there is one panel which is set up, and this dispute settlement panel comes up with some decision, let's say. Okay, it says India, you violated the principles of national treatment with respect to procuring solar cells. That's the judgment. Okay, now India did not like the judgment. No, this is wrong. We did not violate anything. Now India wants to appeal. You can go and appeal. So there is another body called appellate body. So where you can go and appeal. You don't like, no, you did not like the judgment, so you can go and appeal. Now this appellate body has 7 judges. Judges will be there. And these are not like small people, like they are somebody who has lot of knowledge on trade related aspect. Now these judges are something you can't find them regularly. So there is reappointment also for these judges. Once every 4 years you have to reappoint the judges. So when you have to reappoint also the judges and all, there will be all the decisions will be based on consensus. In WTO all decision making is based on what? Consensus, acceptance by different countries, etc. So US started blocking the reappointment of judges. US said no more reappointment of this judge. For South Korean judge was there, and we don't want you. Why? Because he did not give judgments in favor of US. So obviously US was blocking. Like this, you did not have judges also. Available judges were not there to sit and give judgments. And like that, this institution, body, dispute settlement mechanism itself was not working well because of developed countries like US. Everything looks fair and fine on paper, but in reality, it is always the powerful wins over the powerless. That is the standard. This is the forest dharma, the bigger animal eating the smaller animal. It applies in the society, it applies in the international organizations, it applies everywhere and anywhere. You can't show me a single scenario where you will not find this. And obviously, since US is powerful and the developed world is powerful, you will always find the WTO. In fact, these organizations like WTO, IMF, World Bank, these are very much biased for the developed world. In IMF itself, whenever, at least in WTO, decision making is based on what? Consensus. You will sit, vote. In IMF, every country has a different vote strength only. Every country in IMF has a different vote strength. India's vote strength is, let's say, 2.5%. US vote strength is around 16.6. Out of 100%, US vote strength is 16.6. And any important decision you have to take in IMF, you need to get a vote strength of 85%. 85%, without 85% vote strength, you can't take a single important decision in IMF. And US holds how much? 16.6 or 16.7 means Without US voting, you can't even take a single important decision in IMF. This is the situation. And at least in WTO, decision making is based on what? It is better off. It is better off that you sit, every country has a single vote. And in IMF, it is not like that. So that is the reason earlier there was this discussion of BRICS Bank. Heard of this? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Now why BRICS when IMF is there? Okay, why you want a substitute? Because you know there is nothing that is happening there. Are you able to get this? And when they were setting up this BRICS Bank, India was the only country which was saying, why can't there be US also? Okay, then China said, shut up. So the purpose itself, why India wanted, that time India was very kind of submissive kind of approach. After 2014-15 only you find that assertive nature in India. So before that, we said we want to raise capital. Easily, if you want to raise capital, it is always better US is there. So raising capital will be easy, no? So US was suggesting, India was suggesting, why can't we have US? Okay, then China said, wait, if you want capital, I will provide. But the purpose itself will get defeated if you bring US again here. So like this in the international economics, no permanent friends nor enemies, only interests. And in the international arena also, on paper, everything free trade, everything looks fair. In WTO, the whole system itself, you observe, there is this principle of reverse retaliation. Reverse retaliation means what? Suppose US is there. US has increased the tariff barriers against Uruguay, small country, football team. Okay, now US has come up with some tariffs. Reverse means you also retaliate. WTO says reverse retaliate. But how can a small country retaliate against US? Are you able to get this? So like this, observe. So one is we learn because it is there for exam. Don't think it is like this, just because WTO is there, everything is fair. Nothing is fair. I think you're getting my point, right? Is that clear? No, so don't worry. National treatment is only one aspect of it. And just because national treatment is there, everything is fair. No, nothing like that. Clear? Put the heading principle of fair competition. Okay, continue. Write down. Though WTO is described as a free trade institution, the system allows limits. Or tariffs, It allows, few limits are there, few tariffs you can levy. Okay, full stop. Under certain circumstances, it also allows other forms of protection. In spite of rules like non-discrimination. Fair competition aims to reduce dumping, predatory pricing, excessive non-tariff barriers, etc. Excessive non-tariff barriers. You know what is non-tariff barrier, right? 4. Next one. Improved market access. So first one we have written trade without discrimination, then predictability of trade rules, then fair competition, then you are writing improved market access. Improved market access, write down. Lowering trade barriers, lowering trade barriers, lowering trade barriers is one of the most obvious means, is one of the most obvious means of encouraging trade. One of the most obvious means of encouraging trade. Okay, continue. The barriers concerned include custom duties, comma, import ban, comma, quota, Q-U-O-T-A, quota, in bracket write quantitative restrictions, that restrict the quantity selectively, full stop and continue. Improved market access focuses on converting non-tariff barriers into tariff, and reducing tariff barriers progressively. So here, simple logic here, what he says is improved market access means first thing is convert non-tariff barriers into tariff, and over a period of time you also reduce the tariff barriers. That is what is improved market access. So in the exam nobody will ask what are the principles of WTO in mains. That question will not come. There will be a question from a wider perspective. In prelims from here, only thing that they can ask is national treatment or MFN. That's all. National treatment or most favored nation. Other than that, they can't ask anything else. It's all theory only. But we should know that these are the principles of WTO. Now, see here, during the WTO period, when there were lot of discussions, that is 1995, Uruguay round basically, 1986 to 1994, there were a lot of issues that came to the forefront with respect to one aspect related to agriculture subsidy. So to handle this, an agreement came into existence, which is agreement on agriculture, very important agreement. Okay, and there was also aspects or issues related to intellectual property rights. So developed countries basically were lobbying. Countries like US lobbied. They were not happy with respect to the IPR rules. So intellectual property rules include, intellectual property means what? Something novel, something new you invent. Okay, so it includes something like the patents. Heard of patents, no? It includes the copyrights for movies, software and all. Copyrights, Lakshmikant book. Okay, so it's all copyright, no? Now Lakshmikant copyrights are extended to the kith and kin also of Lakshmikant. I think you're getting my point. Generally, you give copyrights till the lifetime of the author. Now you're extending it beyond that. So generally copyrights in India are given for a long-term period, generally 50 years, or for books basically even till the lifetime of the author. Okay, so Patent generally in India we say 20 years, 20 years on an average, 20 years. Similarly, you have something like trademarks. Heard of this? Trademark. Trademark. It is a distinctive sign or a symbol which distinguishes one company from another company. So if I have to say Audi, it should be 4 circles. Okay, so or if I have to say half-eaten apple, that is half-eaten apple for apple. If you want to keep something else, you can keep papaya or something, you can use. But that is already, that's a trademark is already fixed. Trademark is already, that means, or thanda matlab, thanda is what? Coca-Cola. Yes, not Pepsi, thanda matlab Coca-Cola. Okay, so now suppose that's a trademark of Coke. So if you know, Thumbs Up was an Indian brand earlier. And Thumbs Up is far better than Coke in terms of taste. And Thumbs Up is acquired by Coke later. That's the reason if you see the Thumbs Up bottle from below, you find it's a trademark of Coke. Okay, and all that, this is all, if you observe, these are all distinctive signs, McDonald's, all these are distinctive signs or symbols that distinguish one country, one company from another company. So, and you also have something like the geographical indicators. For example, GI tag, we call it Kanchipuram sarees and all that. Okay, so GI tag is something related to that particular geography. Okay, you also have trade secrets. Trade secrets is something that is not mentioned clearly. Not mentioned clearly in the disclosure. Okay, for example, if you see Coca-Cola says the formula for Coca-Cola is in Alaska. And it is a secret. But we find it is like something like a rasna with a, okay, but for them it is a secret formula. Or KFC chicken, they say the formula of KFC chicken is in the lockers of the KFC owner in Kentucky. So these are all trade secrets. If you work for KFC also, you know that formula. You should not be revealing these. These are called as trade secret. Similarly, industrial designs, circuit designs of integrated circuits, all that. You know, these are, for everything you have something like IPRs. So if you have seen Shark Tanks, okay, you will have, there was one girl who was explaining some concept, okay, in terms of packaging, efficient packaging. And the first question Ashnish Grover was asking is, did you patent it? First question. Or Ashnish Grover has used the word, doglapan. This was also, first thing he did is, he has taken an IPR. Businessman, no, he knows. So, and he has written some book, I don't know what kind of book he has written on that. Now he has become an influencer. So now he has taken an IPR for that. Doglapan, Now why, wait, focus here. Okay, so this is all IPR only because somebody else should not use it. Okay, so when I say IPR, it's a huge thing. It's not just about patent. Okay, similarly, there were discussions that time with respect to services, and with respect to services, there was another agreement that came in, which is the GATS agreement, General Agreement on Trade in Services. And then you also have another agreement called as TRIMS, which deals with investments, trade-related investment measures. Trade-related investment measures. Like that, there are also agreements, small agreements like agreement on textiles, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, like this. We'll see. So, all this is basically of the discussion that have come up during the Uruguay round, 8th round of GATT. Is that clear, everybody? Okay. So, the first agreement and the most important agreement is this agreement called Trade-Related Intellectual Property Rights. Now, nobody can say what is right and what is wrong when it comes to IPRs. For example, this we can call it as, on one side, it is you have to promote innovation. How do you promote? This is basically, you can say, innovation versus welfare. Okay. Nobody can give a middle path. Or you can't see, for example, there were people like Jonas Salk who did not patent the polio vaccine. So he was not like a scientist, he is like a saint. You can't expect all the scientists to become saints now. Okay, he was a person who believed that it is for the welfare of everybody. He did not think of patent also. Jonas Salk did not think. But when we talk about COVID vaccine, okay, so our Microsoft owner was the first person who was talking about patenting it. Okay, don't think Bill Gates is a fantastic person just because he's running Melinda Gates Foundation. Okay, so Melinda Gates Foundation, basically when you are seeing, they are doing a lot of research there and they want to patent whatever they do. And they want to make it as premium as possible. There's something like logic that is running there. Okay, so here if you observe, finding a middle line between innovation versus welfare, or what is innovation? Promoting R&D. Okay, versus maybe welfare or lives of people. Now this becomes always a big challenge because the developed countries feel if you have to promote R&D and innovation, somebody who is putting in effort with respect to coming up with a new product or a new technology has to have some protection, and that comes through these intellectual property rights like patents, copyrights, etc. Even with respect to sensitive drugs also, including the cancer drugs. Today, one of the reasons for cancer treatment being very costly in India is most of the cancer drugs are patented drugs. And because of that, cancer treatment, almost for the drugs itself, you have to spend something like 8 lakhs, 9 lakhs. Then automatically cancer treatment, in India cancer is rampant now, if you know. If you go to cancer hospital, you can't even see that or imagine the picture also. There are no beds available. And cancer treatment is so costly, and one of the important reasons is most of the cancer drugs are patented drugs. But the developed world is always interested, obviously, in terms of promoting research and development. Because that particular person or scientist who would have put in effort, he would have put in effort for years together for designing that particular product. He would have tested it on rats and bats, clinical trials. And after all that, that product comes into the market. So you have to give him some scope that for the next 20 years, nobody will manufacture a similar kind of product. You reap the benefits from the market for the next 20 years. This is how IPRs work, no? So that means if a particular product is patented, nobody else will manufacture a similar kind of product till the patent period, isn't it? So you only reap the benefits, and this is an incentive for innovation. This patent is a kind of an incentive which we are giving for innovation. But at the same time, developing nations like India, if the drugs become very costly, then automatically poor man will get affected, and they may lose their lives also because of lack of affordability. So always from the beginning, how do you bring a balance, especially with respect to pharmaceutical products, drugs, etc., was a big challenge from the beginning. So in India also, 1970s if you see, India had its own Patents Act, and India's 1970s Patents Act actually allowed for manufacturing generic drugs. Generic drug manufacturing, it directly allowed. That means India's case also, why? Because 80% of our pharma market that point of time was completely occupied by multinational companies. Okay, so domestic manufacturing was very limited and the drugs were very costly. So how do you handle that? So Indian government said, we will allow for something called as the process patent. In India, they were issuing something like the process patent with respect to drugs. What is the meaning of process patent? You are only patenting the method of manufacturing the final product. Process is the methodology used for manufacturing the final product. You are not giving patents for the final product. So you are not giving product patents, but rather you are giving only, let's say, process patent. Means the methodology used for manufacturing the final drug is patented. Are you able to get this? Okay, so because of that, somebody may use reverse engineering. There were some companies like Dr. Reddy's, etc. They have used reverse engineering technique. Once you know the final product, through a different method, you can manufacture a similar kind of product. And that is what we were doing. Dr. Reddy's also benefited out of that reverse engineering technique, etc. But this aspect of giving only process patent was not liked by the developed countries. So developed countries were always focused on asking for give something called as product patent, issue product patent. So product patent means you may follow any method, but don't manufacture a similar kind of drug. Whatever method you follow, it is irrespective of your method, the product is patented. What is the meaning of product is patented? That means you will not manufacture a similar kind of product for the next 20 years, whatever method you may use. So developed countries were always stressing on what patents? Product patents. Is that clear, everybody? Is this clear? So first of all, what you should understand is, this TRIPS agreement came into existence because of lobbying done by the developed world. Who is interested? India at that time was not interested. Why will we be interested in intellectual property rights with respect to drugs? Very limited interest, because our R&D scope is limited. So it is the developed world, especially US, because even today most of the drug patents are under the control of US. US is very strong with respect to drug patents, etc. And US lobbied enough. So what was US trying to explain is, before TRIPS agreement came into existence, there was a convention called as Paris Convention. And this Paris Convention was handling all aspects related to intellectual property rights. And Paris Convention was liberal in nature. Liberal means, obviously it was okay, it was saying fine, national governments, domestic governments, if you feel there is a requirement of a drug, then you can go ahead with breaking the patent. So that means Paris Convention was so liberal that it was putting national cause over the patent. So that means Paris Convention was very liberal in nature, which was not liked by the developed world, because it was giving more priority to the national government. So national governments could easily override the patent. So therefore they did not like the Paris Convention, countries like US. And therefore they have lobbied enough, and they said a new agreement should come into existence in the form of TRIPS, trade related intellectual property rights. And what were the two important aspects which they covered under the TRIPS? So first important aspect which they covered under the TRIPS is conversion of process patents into product patents, mainly with respect to these aspects like pharmaceuticals, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and to some extent food. So their primary logic is conversion of process patent into product. If you want to give process also, it's okay, but you also have to give product patents, mainly with respect to drugs, chemicals, food related aspects. Okay. Second is, they said expand the scope of intellectual property rights. That means TRIPS agreement should cover everything related to IPRs. Everything related to IPRs means you have to expand the scope of IPRs so that it will include everything, like the patents it should include the copyrights, it should also include trademarks, okay, or it should include the trade secrets. Okay, so you include everything, you expand the scope, it should include the GI tags. Okay, it should include the design of integrated circuits, industrial designs. Okay, so come up with a wider agreement which will cover most of the intellectual property rights. So two things. First, conversion of process patent into product patent with respect to pharmaceutical products, chemicals, food related aspect. Second important aspect is IPRs to be granted the wider scope, expand the scope of IPR so that it will cover patents, copyrights, trademark, trade secret, whatever it is. It has to have a wider scope. Are you able to get this? For everything, you will not have another entity. You have a TRIPS, under TRIPS you cover all the aspects related to intellectual property. Is this clear? In WTO, what you find is there is something called as special and differentiated treatment. In WTO is one of the principles which you find. What is the meaning of special and differentiated treatment is, though the agreements may be same for all the countries, generally you will find that developing countries or least developed countries are given an extended period of time for implementation. They'll say, okay, fine, India, you are a developing nation, you can implement TRIPS agreement, maybe take more time for implementation. This is basically, you are giving a special and differentiated treatment. For example, TRIPS agreement, the developed countries had to implement TRIPS. Developed countries had to implement TRIPS by the year 2000. 2000. 2000 means what? Within 5 years from formation of WTO. WTO was formed in 1995. So within 5 years from the formation of WTO, developed countries, you implement this agreement, TRIPS. Countries like India, you implement TRIPS agreement by the time of 2005. 2005. That is basically 10 years from the formation of WTO. And then they said countries like Bangladesh, earlier least developed countries, you implement it by 2016. Okay, and few aspects they said you can also implement few things by 2023. That means though the agreement called TRIPS remains the same, you are given, the countries are given an extended period of time for implementation. Countries are given an extended period of time for implementation. So developed countries by 2000, developing countries by 2005, India. So that means it clearly indicates that India had to implement TRIPS agreement by, India had to bring in TRIPS agreement. That means India's domestic patent laws should be in line with the TRIPS, by which year? 2005. Is this clear, everybody? So what we did is, we had to amend our earlier Patents Acts. So one was the 1970s Patent Act, which was primarily granting process patent. So this process patent was not only helping India, but because of India, other third world countries, African nations were also benefiting. Because whenever you have generic drugs with you, whenever African nations need, we used to give it to them. India is a kind-hearted country. So whenever any other country is in trouble, we used to give drugs to them also. So therefore, it's not just about India that was benefiting because of 1970s Patents Act, but also the third world countries were also benefiting because of our 1970s Patents Act, which was granting something like what patent? Process patent. But obviously, India has to implement something called as product patents by the year 2005. India had to implement, because you have to be in line with TRIPS, means India had to implement product patent with respect to drugs, pharmaceutical related aspects, mainly food, chemicals, by 2005. So we decided to amend our Patents Act, and most important amendment was the 2005 Patents Amendment Act. You have to amend it. You have to amend your law to bring it in line with the TRIPS agreement, because we had to implement TRIPS by which year? 2005. Have you understood till here? Is this clear? Understood? Okay, now it's not over. It does not want to means India, tomorrow again there will be filing of cases. India will have, see what you should observe is, 1991 you went ahead with LPG. Okay, yes, you were dependent on IMF and other institutions. You were recovering from BOP crisis. On the other side, you are moving towards market economy, and you decided to go ahead with integrating yourself with the globalized world. Okay, so under such circumstances, when organizations like WTO was formed 1995, that means India still has not recovered also. But India decided to follow LPG, open economy, becoming part of globalized world. So you can't say no, you can't say we will not follow, what will you do? Understood? No. When can you be assertive is when everything is okay. Today also we are in line with, silently if we want we will do. We will give subsidies, export subsidies, sugar will go out, then somebody files a case, you go and file it back. Understood? Is this clear? So that point of time, just imagine our situation. Many a times in the WTO meetings, our commerce minister used to walk off. Okay, so walk off means you used to take the suitcase and move. Why? Upset. He's upset. He's expecting something. Developed country will not treat you at par. It will say, India, what are you doing? You're protecting your market. You're useless, this. So the commerce minister used to get frustrated and used to walk off. And the next day in the newspaper, it used to come, walk off. Okay, the commerce minister was upset. And the photograph with the suitcase used to come. So this is what used to happen. So the same thing applies even in the environment related summits. Most of the environment summits, what they do, they go there, have chai, samosa, discuss things, ultimately don't implement anything. So this is what happens, environment related summits also, they go discuss, there's a lot of money that is getting wasted. You discuss, you come back and you say no binding. And other countries, developed countries say you have to implement and you fight. Okay, so is this clear till here? Okay, notes I will dictate later, but listen, till here it's clear. Okay, so now what you should understand is, though India said we will come up with this amendment in 2005, along with that India also was conscious. India was also conscious, class is not over, don't pack your bags. India was also conscious about welfare. India was also conscious about welfare, and therefore India decided to include a controversial clause into the Patents Amendment Act. A controversial clause means not controversial for us, the developed world felt it is controversial. So section 3 clause D, it was mainly basically India wanted to prevent something called as evergreening of patents. India wanted to prevent evergreening of patents. Prevent evergreening of patent. What is evergreening? Okay. Now one example can be, suppose there is, let's say, a painkiller. What is that painkiller? I'm not able to get. Saradon, not Saradon. I'm not able to recollect the name of that drug basically. That drug can also be used as for heart problems, in the sense that it will make the blood less viscous. Aspirin. Aspirin. Just an example here. Now let's say aspirin, they have taken patent for aspirin for 20 years as a painkiller. Example only. 20 years. Now by the end of the 19th year, if you come up with a new use of an already existing product, you're coming up with a new use means you're saying aspirin can also be used for heart problems in making blood less viscous. Now you apply for a new patent. Apply for a new patent. So you are extending it for the next 20 years. Are you able to get this? Now by the end of the 39th year, you come up with finding out a new component in the existing product. And you say let us extend the patent for another 20 years. Now this is what is called as what? Evergreening of patent, which is not good because the drug always remains costly because of the patent. Is this clear, everybody? So now the question comes up, in this section 3 clause D, India clearly says finding out a new use of an already existing product. If you are finding a new use of an existing product, that will not be qualified as a patent. If you are finding out a new use, it will not be qualified. Though you may come up with a new component in an existing product, you cannot extend your patent. So that is clearly mentioned in these clauses. Are you able to get this? Otherwise what will happen is it will increase, or it will lead to what? Evergreening of patents. It will lead to evergreening of patents. Is this clear? Okay. Another important aspect is India said we will also come up with certain protections. India said we also have to come up with protections because welfare of people becomes important. And India came up with 2 protections in its act. One is called as the compulsory licenses or compulsory licensing. Another one is called as the parallel imports. So these are basically safeguards. What do you mean by safeguard? Yes, though we will be in line with the TRIPS, we will be in line with the TRIPS agreement, but at the same time protection of public, taking care of public welfare, all that becomes important, for which we have decided to come up with 2 additional safeguards, and one such safeguard is compulsory licensing. Is that clear? Okay. Now anybody, what is this compulsory licensing? I will take some 5 minutes extra. Don't be in a hurry to pack your bags. Compulsory license lena hai. This is okay. Very good. Very good. Very good. He is right. Okay. So there was also a case related to this, which is a cancer drug He's right actually. A cancer drug called as Nexavar. It's a drug. It's a cancer drug. Okay. Now this drug, it's a patented drug. Bayer Corporation. It's a patented drug, and it's also called as the Nexavar case. It became a huge issue, like. So what is this compulsory license? We'll only discuss this. Forget about this now. So what is this compulsory license is? Suppose there is an urgent public requirement. Let's say people are dying because of a particular disease, or maybe cancer treatment is becoming too costly, and government has realized that it's of urgent importance. So government can temporarily override the patent. Temporarily override means temporarily cross over the patent. Temporary only. This is not permanent. Temporarily override the patent. And it can issue license. It can issue license to a local manufacturer. Local manufacturer. It can issue a license. Okay. So with respect to this Nexavar, there was a local company called Natco Pharma. This Natco Pharma was given license. Okay, it's a domestic company. So this is Nexavar is a cancer drug. This drug is very costly. India requested Bayer Corporation, why don't you reduce the price because people are getting affected, do something. So India, they did not reduce the price. So India took a decision of using what? Compulsory licensing. I mean, temporarily it has overridden the patent. It has given license to a domestic local pharmaceutical company, Natco Pharma, to manufacture a generic form of the original drug. Manufacture a generic form of the original drug. And this generic form of the original drug price was 1/10 of the original drug. Okay, now generic form of the original drug you are manufacturing, let's say. So this generic drug will be cheaper. Okay, and this is not for an extended period of time. This license is only for a temporary period till the period you handle the health related hazard, health related issue. Till that time, this license is valid for Natco Pharma. Okay, during the period also, when they are manufacturing these drugs, the original manufacturer will also be paid some royalty. If they like it or not, we will pay royalty, take this money. Royalty is paid to them because you have given license to a domestic manufacturer to manufacture the generic drug. So this is what is called as what? Compulsory license. India, remember, India never misutilized its provisions till now. So in this TRIPS agreement related conclusions, you can completely take a stand favoring India. You don't need any balanced approach here. There's nothing like balanced middle path required for writing this conclusion because India never misutilized its provisions till date. So even till now there was only Nexavar. That's all. And one more case was with respect to approvals and all, Glivec. It's also a cancer drug. But India never misutilized. In fact, during COVID, Supreme Court was also saying, why don't you issue compulsory licenses? But Indian government was not pro giving compulsory licenses, etc. with respect to vaccines. So here what we should observe is, India till now has never misutilized these safeguards for its benefit. Never misutilized. Unnecessarily US is shouting and worried about compulsory licensing that India may misutilize. But till now, India has never misutilized. You can only see one case there, that is the Nexavar case. Is this clear? No, this is basically drugs. No machinery here. No. This is basically with respect to what? Drugs basically. Is this clear, everybody? One paragraph. Put the heading TRIPS. Otherwise, you will forget everything again next time when I meet you. So, better you write something. TRIPS agreement. TRIPS agreement. Trade related intellectual property rights. It relates to protection of IPRs It relates to protection of IPRs and was negotiated during Uruguay round. And was negotiated during Uruguay round. Uruguay round. Spelling of the country? No. During Uruguay round. Write down, continue. TRIPS came into existence. TRIPS came into existence as a result of intense lobbying. As a result of intense lobbying. Intense lobbying of US. Intense lobbying of US, supported by other developed countries. Supported by other developed countries. Okay. Continue. Last 5 minutes only, don't worry. Under TRIPS, IPR owners are granted exclusive rights. IPR owners are granted exclusive rights. To a variety of intangible assets. To a variety of intangible assets. To a variety of intangible assets, such as work of art, comma, innovation, etc. The justification given for such right, is the monopoly profit, that acts as an incentive for R&D, research and development. R&D acts as an incentive for R&D. Full stop and continue. Prior to TRIPS agreement, IPR trade was governed by Paris Convention. Paris Convention was fairly liberal. In giving the national government the right to decide on the subject matter of patents, comma, trademarks, etc. Subject matter on patents, comma, trademarks, etc. Okay. Okay. So we'll stop here. Yes.